me not talk about family when family's all that we got. Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family, we chose this one. This is episode 16, Fast 5, Lap 2. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe 2, and this episode is brought to you by SentrySafe, creating peace of mind for a lifetime. SentrySafe enables people to safeguard the important and irreplaceable. We give people the confidence to know that their valuables entrusted in their care are protected and can endure adverse conditions due to fire, flood, or theft.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Shout out SentrySafe.
Did you get your safe in the mail?
I did. It's a little bit smaller than the one in this movie, but I also don't have nearly as much money to, store in the safe as they do in this movie. But yeah, I did. So
sadly, mine doesn't have a hand scanner, like a palm print scanner, but thank you.
That's on the high-end ones.
Yeah. We just got, some nice SentrySafes. I have one in my basement. I store all my birth certificates and stuff in there.
This is our first episode of every other week. We just recorded, behind the scenes, we recorded the last episode 2 days ago.
Yeah.
The last episode was released 5 days ago. So we are here in the quickest back-to-back turnaround. It's almost like a home and home for hockey, right? Like it's like a...
That's funny because the Penguins play a home and an away against the Islanders this week.
And it makes sense for these two to be back-to-back because 4 ends where this begins, right? So
this is the pivot. Yeah, I'm actually kind of glad that we don't have that much space in between them because it felt like a nice segue for my brain when watching them again.
Yep. Joining us after the break will be Walt Hickey, formerly of FiveThirtyEight, now currently of Numlock News. He's also doing something else, but he writes a newsletter, sends it out daily, which you can get for free.
Which are awesome.
You can also subscribe for $5 a month to support him and also get a really cool Sunday edition. So he will talk a little bit more about that. But we had him on, we mentioned, I think, on an episode or two ago, we had him on a Cage Club, and he was like, oh, I love the Fast and Furious movies. So we're like, cool. We're gonna chat to you real soon about this. So here we are in a little bit. Walt coming up to talk about Fast 5.
Yeah, I'm excited for him to join. Not that I'm looking forward to any guest more than another, but this is one that I was really looking forward to. So
I hope he does not disappoint you or our listeners, but I'm sure that he won't. So it's time for our first segment: extracurricular activities. Like I said, we recorded last episode 2 days ago, but since then I did go to that party that I mentioned.
Nice.
Hung out with Chris Podcasts.
Cool.
He was Tommy Wiseau.
Nice.
So there was that. He was carrying a football around, so then by the time he got tired of the football, I was holding the football. We also played Rock Band for a couple hours.
That's cool.
All in all, a fun little party. Good to see Chris, because he is, drowning in med school work.
Yeah,
so anytime I can see him, it's cool to see him. And then yesterday I just watched football all day, so that was my weekend. Did you do anything fun since Saturday when we recorded?
No, we got really, really drunk on Saturday night for the Penguins game. And we stayed up. I don't know when or how I went to bed. And then I woke up Sunday, watched the Steelers game, and that's what I did all day. Yeah, pretty much.
Your poor Steelers cost Hugh Jackson his job, or more accurately, the fact that he went, I think, 3-36-1 in 2+ seasons cost him his job. But
Zach had a really good stat that was of the 250 head coaches that have been fired in the past 10 years, Hugh Jackson is 249th in win percentage, and the 250th guy was the owner at the time, so he couldn't really fire himself.
We were talking before, earlier today, that this is the 6th time in a row the Browns have fired a coach mid-season after playing the Steelers a second time. So,
yeah, that's a good... I like that stat. That's
It doesn't happen every year, but when it does, it's always after they get beaten by the Steelers. So,
amen.
There's
that was
something like that.
Fun sports news day for all of my friends online, so we had a good time about it.
Do you like sports? Email us, family@cageclub.me. We have an email here on the show, mailbag segment. We don't have any email because we just recorded 48 hours ago, but email family@cageclub.me. I'm expecting to have a couple, not really begging for them, but also kind of begging for them, but I'm assuming just because we put out 2 episodes by the time that we're going to record the next one, so I'm assuming we'll have a couple emails. family@cageclub.me. We will read whatever you write.
Exactly.
On the streets, you said you had some news. So 2 days ago,
I have some fun news.
We recorded. There's new news since then. What's your new news?
Yeah, there is new news since then, actually. Okay, first one. Do you want the biggest one or the medium one?
You know I like my dessert first.
Okay. So these are...
Do you know that's from?
No.
It's from this movie.
Is it? What part does he say that?
When that one cop goes to The Rock, he's like, I got good news and bad news. He's like, what do you want? He's like, you know what, I like my dessert first.
No, I totally missed that. Okay, cool. Catch
really
that on the
early in
next
the movie.
rewatch.
There you go. I don't know how my answer relates to either one of your options, but
I think that they're both
first.
big, and I think that you could rank them either way, so that's why it didn't
Okay.
matter. That's why I was letting you
Cool.
choose. What I think is like the bigger, air quotes, bigger news is that Stephen Colbert.
Okay.
He has some kind of like segment on on his show, and it's called Just
Okay.
One Question.
Just one question.
Okay. He had Hillary Clinton sit down, and he said, "Just one question: The Rock or Vin Diesel?"
Oh.
I know. She says, I'm just gonna read it because it's like a good answer. What a tough question, boy. The Fast and the Furious movies prove that both are masters of high octane action. And while The Rock is an indispensable part of the later films, Vin Diesel is really the heart and center of the Toretto family. And in the end, everyone is better off when they're able to look past what divides them and work together. You know, I like to say, stronger together. So she's firmly a Vin Diesel girl.
What do you think the odds are, 0 or more than 0, that she's ever seen a minute of a Fast and Furious movie?
It's 0 approaching an infinity. It's like approaching 0. The odds, like if I had Vegas odds on it, it will be like plus 70,000 that she's seen one Fast and Furious movie. I think some hipster millennial had to write that answer for her.
Oh, 100%. I also wouldn't put it past her to not have heard of at least one of the two actors.
Same. I was just about to say that. Like, she was like, who's that one? You know, like, okay. But I bet that Bill has seen them multiple times.
I feel like he might have seen the early ones. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if he had to, he'd be more into the early ones. I don't know.
I could see Bill just like sitting on the couch, hand in his pants, watching Fast and the Furious, while Hill Dog's like running around in the background. You know, like, God damn it, Bill, this again. And he's like, wait, it's a good scene. You know, like, but that's just my take on what I see happening in that family. Okay.
God, that is really good and also just so funny for so many reasons. But,
the imagery?
Just, Hillary Clinton just talking for a minute about Fast and Furious, like.
I know, that's why I said it. I think that's quotably the bigger news. But another big
That's why
piece of
I'm
news,
with her.
Another big piece of news is that Vin Diesel was spotted sharing romantic snog with you know who?
Oh wait,
No.
No, Charlize was. I think there was a rumor that Charlize was dating Brad Pitt.
We could have freaked out if that happened. Come on, so it's not that. You know who it is?
Who?
Tallulah Riley.
Oh.
Yeah.
Former Mrs. Elon Musk twice.
Former Mrs. Elon Musk twice was out there. She's making out with him, and there's like pictures of them like smooching.
I gotta set Google alerts for because I had a Google alert for Fast and Furious, and 100% of the articles that I got back were unhelpful. They were all like, "This medical bill is
theories.
fast and furiously coming at you," or
And
whatever. I was like,
theories.
"This."
Yeah.
So I created one for Hobbs and Shaw, so that's good.
Yeah.
Then I also just created one for Vin Diesel. Do you think I should do? I'll do Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Maybe I'll get some more of those, but because the Hobbs and Shaw thing, it keeps me abreast of the situation. But there's no good
real news
Google alert for the actual franchise. But yeah, those are good. I mean, the first one especially, Vin Diesel and Tallulah, pretty good. But Hill Dog talking about.
Okay, yeah.
Vin
So
Diesel.
I ranked them the right way. Okay.
Yeah, so you gave me my dessert first, which is good.
Okay, cool. Those are my two big pieces of news. Fast and Furious. A little Fast and Furious news going on here.
So before we get to our new lap observations and then take a break, I've been forgetting to say this. Actually, I guess we only recorded the one episode since I got this, but
I was there when you bought it.
You were there when I bought it. Our friend who was in the last episode, Liam Underwood, sent us a picture from the UK and said, "Do you guys know about this?" And he was holding a Fast and Furious Monopoly board, and I was
Which
like,
they make
no.
every version of Monopoly. I have a Bob's Burgers one. There's a bajillion of them. But this is fucking cool.
So I looked on eBay, no results. I looked on Amazon, there was just one, and it was like $50, and I was like, I guess I gotta buy it because I need to have it. So I got it, it came. So I'm gonna go over a few things here. What is the same, what is different? I'm sure that these are...
Yeah, tell me. I want to know,
these.
like, is Toretto's Garage Boardwalk? If it's not, I'm gonna be sad.
No, so here's the thing.
Oh, fuck.
So let me go through this little piece of paper, link up the piece of paper down. The game board, the action on the board is the same, but you're buying moments from the franchise.
Moments?
So you know how on each side of
places?
the board... No, well, sometimes they're places, but you know on each side of the board, there's two colors, right? Like there's the dark purple and the light blue. There is the...
Yeah, they're sets
whatever.
of threes and twos,
So
yeah.
each of those is a different movie. So there's 8 colors, 8 movies. So the first one is Fast and Furious 1 and Too Fast, Too Furious. The second side, between jail and free parking, is Tokyo Drift and Fast and Furious 4.
Okay.
Between Fast and Furious 4 and Go to Jail are Fast 5 and Fast and Furious 6.
Okay.
And then the final stretch is Furious 7 and Fate of the Furious.
So this was pretty recent then, because we were trying to figure out when they made it.
So transport spaces, which are the railroads, have been replaced by Los Angeles, Gran Canaria, Miami River, and Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
The utilities, electric company and waterworks, are now Tej's Garage and Dom's Garage.
Okay.
Chance and community chest cards have become race admission cards.
Okay.
Houses have been renamed workshops, and hotels have become showrooms.
Oh.
So that's all of that. So then we were talking about, because there is a game that we're going to play, I think, on a future lap, maybe with Mike, maybe the lap after Mike, we're not sure, but we're going to turn different board games into a Fast and Furious version. I think we could probably still do Monopoly and just do it better.
Yeah, this doesn't sound very appetizing, to be honest.
Especially the thing that's kind of boring is that all the pieces are cars.
Okay.
Which makes it kind of hard, like, as someone who doesn't really know cars, there are some, SUVs, there's some sports cars, whatever.
It should have been like a wrench. It should have been like Dom's necklace.
Because I feel like if you forget where you are on the board, you're like, oh, I was the car.
Everyone's the car.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly.
I get it.
So the first thing I saw, because I looked to Boardwalk and Park Place, because we were hoping it was the big things. The first thing I saw, and this is the only one I caught so far, Park Place is Dom joins Cypher, right? But they spell Cypher C-I-T as in Tom, H-E-R, like Scyther. And I was like, how are you going to let a typo get on the board?
On the board.
That's embarrassing.
Actually on the board. Maybe you have like a rare misprint copy.
Probably not. I don't think anybody gives a shit about this.
Okay.
There's an impound fee is instead of the tax, there's a speeding fine, which is like the luxury tax.
Yeah.
But the ones from this movie, which we'll just talk about, are train robbery is the first one.
Okay.
Then favela chase, which is that rooftop chase.
Yeah, I know.
And then the third one is stealing the vault.
Those are good ones. Those are solid.
That's that. But yeah, so it's cool. I want to play this because I just want to play Monopoly, but I also want to play Fast and Furious Monopoly, and I also spent $50 on this, and I want to get my money's worth. So I don't know if one game of Monopoly is worth $50, but it's a tax write-off. So
yeah, I'll play. I recently played Monopoly for the first time ever with Rachel. She had never played.
Oh, with Rachel.
Yeah. I had played, obviously.
Okay, but she'd never played.
She had never played ever before in her life. And I made her watch the Louis C.K. when he, talks about Monopoly. Do you ever watch this one?
Maybe. It's probably gonna ring a bell when you talk about it.
He, talks about Monopoly, and he's like, look, there's, the only way you win Monopoly is, if someone cries. And, he's when he's, playing with his daughters, and he's like, look, I, teach them, look, I took all of your shit. And, everything that you have still won't even come close to repaying me right now. But I'm going to take all of your shit and just use it to demolish your sister in the next pass, Yep. And it's really funny. So, I made her watch that, and then we played Monopoly, and we went around the board, and, and I got to the point where I was just like, okay, Rachel, you could not pay me and just give me these 2 properties. You know what I mean? And it just, you get to that point that it's just flip the board or cry. That's the only way somebody wins.
Everybody knows that the way to win Monopoly is just to have the orange squares. That's it. If you have those...
Really?
It's all over, yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's how I win. I haven't played Monopoly in a while, but because of where they're located, because they're right by jail and by just visiting, if you a 6, 8, or 9 or whatever, those are the most common things. If you have orange, and you have hotels in there quickly, you are golden.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's cool. I like it.
All right, the last little thing that we're going to talk about before we take a break and bring in Walt is our new lap observation. So what about this time did you notice that you've never seen before in Fast 5?
I noticed something that's not Fast and the Furious related, but also Fast and the Furious adjacent.
Okay.
At the end, when Brian's supposed to get away, Dom has the safe. Brian shows up with the gun and shoots Reyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see on his wrist he has a tattoo that says Meadow with a flower.
Oh.
Yeah, because I was trying to stop and see what the tattoo was, and they didn't make him cover it up. It's his daughter's name and a flower. Cute. Yeah, it was really cool. I was like, oh, that's cool. Because I was like, oh, what does that tattoo say? And then I was like, oh, no, that was just really his tattoo, and it said Meadow. They just didn't care about it.
At the end of the movie, this is not my observation. This is just something I noticed that's related to yours. When Dom and Elena show up to the house with Brian and Mia, and it's still still doesn't look like Elena to me because she's in like casual wear, you know what I mean? And I just can't recognize people in other outfits. But she's got a little like hip tattoo that I was like, oh, you know, a little bit edgy for a cop, but there you go.
Yeah, ooh, fancy boy.
All right, so I've got a.
What did you notice?
See here. So the one thing I'll say early on is there's a couple close-ups early on about Vince's forearm for when he's wrapped in that wire from the first movie. Like he has lived with these literal scars.
I didn't notice that. Okay,
from the
that's
first
cool.
movie. Yeah, so they show a couple times really early on, and it's just like the camera like stays on it, right?
Yeah,
so
I didn't see that. No, I didn't.
So it's like this is, you know, he's been living with it because we haven't seen him since the first movie. So
yeah, we're acknowledging his scars.
One little thing I noticed that not about the movie. This is the only movie in the series without the word "furious" in the title.
Ooh.
There are 2 movies without Fast, Furious 7, and Fate of the Furious, but this is the only one without.
That's not Furious.
Yeah.
Just Fast.
You know, when we talked about this movie last time, I said that I almost cried at the very end, just out of happiness that when they robbed the safe, when they opened the safe, they're like, oh, our guys did it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This time, that did not get me there, but I almost cried at a different part in this movie, which is when, like, 40 minutes in, Dom, Mia, and Brian are on that balcony, and they're like, we're going to need a chameleon, we're going to need a fast talker, we're going to need this, we're going to need that, or whatever.
Yeah.
And at the very end, you know, he says that we need 2 guys who don't crack. Dom says, we need 2 guys who don't crack under pressure, guys who never lose. And Brian says, you know we got that. And he just looks at him with the Paul Walker smile. And I was like, fuck, like, that's just the fact that he's dead, that they're never going to have that again. You know what I mean? It's just like this wonderful moment between actors, between characters that we just don't have. And it was just like this kind of unbridled joy in a way. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this... God, it's just a bummer, man. Like it is. I think there's gonna be like a little thing in every movie where I just see and I'm like, man, like it's like life isn't fair sometimes. You know what I mean? So
yeah, when we were just watching 4 and Paul Walker came back, I was like, damn, we're not gonna get any more of these. Like he's back. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it was like he came back then, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I was like, oh fuck, like he's not gonna come back again. So
yeah,
sucks.
That's a bummer. Cool, I've got other things, but I will save for Walt because they are kind of character-based or stuff that I want to talk to the two of you about.
Cool.
Anything else you want to talk about before we take a break and then, come back?
Nope.
Cool, so we will have a quick little commercial break with a little bit of the same music that I play in every episode, and we'll be right back with another word from our sponsors.
Welcome back to Too Fast, Too Forever, Lap 2, Fast 5. And our sponsor today is SentrySafe. Founded in 1930, SentrySafe is a global leader in offering fire-resistant and security storage solutions for important documents and valuables. SentrySafe produces and distributes fire-resistant chests, files, safes, and security storage containers to more than 54 countries worldwide. SentrySafe.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like money.
Exactly. So...
What is the currency in Brazil? Do we know? I bet our guest knows. I'm going to ask Google right now. It is the Brazilian... Oh, the real. I think I knew that. Maybe. Our guest today is a very smart man, a very cultured man, also someone who just loves pop culture like we do. It is Walt Hickey of Numlock News. Hello, Walt.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm having a great time. Thanks again for having me. This is always a super fun podcast to come on.
You also have a new gig, right? Like you're doing Numlock still every day, and I subscribe to that, and I think everybody else should subscribe to that and pay you if they have the ability to pay you. But you also have a new gig now too, right?
Yeah. No, thank you so much for mentioning Numlock. That's the daily news thing that I have. But I actually just signed on. I'm going to be the senior editor for data at Insider. So it's actually kind of a bit of a homecoming for me. They gave me my first job in journalism.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's great, and I am essentially like I'll have resources to do like original polling, original research, all that kind of stuff. So it's actually cool. Like it's a good time. I'm really looking forward to it.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Well, the reason we found you, or the way that we found you for Cage Club, another show on the network, is you used to write for 538. And you had put this piece together. You had a whole series on the different types of movies. What was the name of that series? I should have done literally any research, but I did not. Sure.
It was Hollywood Taxonomy.
And you did one about the 4 different kinds, or 5 different kinds, of Nicolas Cage movies. And as I was going through those to do a little bit of research for that show, I was like, oh, you did Vin Diesel and The Rock. And then I said to you several months ago, I was like, we also have a Fast and Furious podcast. You were like, oh, I love those movies. And I was like, well...
You were like, boy, we have a podcast for you?
boy, do we have a podcast for you.
Okay.
The greatest film franchise to ever live. I think there's only one kind of Fast and Furious movie, and that is great. But I'm sure you could also subset these a little bit. But welcome. So I'm assuming, I don't want to wrongfully assume, have you seen all 8 movies?
I have, yes.
Okay.
How would you, no pressure, but how would you rank them?
Oh, boy. You've hit me on the one that this is my favorite of the Fast and Furious movies by far. Now, the rest of them, that's a pickle, isn't it?
You can even say, like, which ones you like, which ones you don't like, if anything stands out. It doesn't have to be, like, a rigid ranking system. You can just...
I mean, I'll be frank with you. It's this on that I really prefer, and then it's the previous ones from these that I don't really prefer a lot. Yeah, I like the music from Tokyo Drift. That song's bang on, but I think its decision, the franchise's transition, I'm sure that we will talk to this a little bit more later, but the franchise's transition to less about the cars and more about the people who drive them was to hit me, because I'm the kind of, like, I'm not a gearhead kind of stuff, right? I'm absolutely a heist movie guy, and I'm absolutely a caper kind of guy, and I'm absolutely interested in these ensemble pictures, and again, I'm sure that we'll get into some of the stuff that I wrote about Diesel later, but I think that he is brilliant in so many different ways about how he escalates over the course of a franchise. This was a really important turning point in the franchise for me personally, I would say, and so everything after this is just a totally different tier than the stuff that kind of came before.
Now, had you seen the first 4 before this came out? Because, like, this was the first one that I saw, and then I went back and saw them all. What was the first one in the series that you saw?
Oh boy, so I will tell you straight up, I was a non-believer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For the longest time, like years and years, I had opportunities to see these movies, and I decided not to. They're carboy movies, and I wasn't carboy.
Yep.
I was a different kind of film geek and all that kind of stuff. But I would say
heist boy.
Yeah, exactly. I just, I like heist movies, and I like when people steal stuff, and I like when Danny Ocean gets 10 friends and they do a fun thing in a casino. And
which
like,
is this movie, yeah.
In a lot of ways. I mean, the intersection of where this movie lives versus other heist movies, we can talk about later, because for a different side project, I've done a lot of different research about heist movies, and so I'm happy to parlay some of those findings ahead of publication, so to speak. But long story short, one thing that really interests me is that I like how these movies totally refocused and they realized what the appeal was. This is the first movie that I saw with it. I saw it when I was drunk, and I saw it with my group of friends, and to this day it still is a central kind of like the family mentality of you're able to choose the people that you want to surround yourself with, and you're able to build the people that you want to spend your life with. That's an important idea. This movie was a very consequential thing of being like, these aren't just carboy movies, these are like movies about broader ideas, and they are able to talk about them in a compelling way because they kind of drape themselves in all the affectations of a car movie, that kind of stuff.
I fully agree with you, I think, on just about every point. I saw this one because How Did This Get Made did this, so I guess it's the podcast equivalent of being drunk with your friends, and I was like, oh, I love this, and I went back, I was like, these movies are wildly different, but then I saw 6, 7, 8 in theaters, and this one and 6 for me are right up there. In terms of the ones, you like the 4 more recent ones, you even like 8? Because 8's a hot button topic on this podcast.
8 I find fascinating. Like, a lot of times, like, again, like, you fellas had a movie podcast about Nicolas Cage, and I think that we can all agree that there's a difference between movies that we like, there's a difference between movies that we appreciate. Yeah. And 8, I think, shows some of the seams, and I think it's the first and only time that you actually can see Hollywood kind of pushing in on these guys. And the thing that I find fascinating about 8 is that the 2 most important people in the movie were never in the same scene together. And when you watch it, re-seeing that, you can see, oh my god, the filmmaking that had to go into this and the rewrites that had to go into this in order just to keep Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson separate are Herculean. And so I think that even when you can see the scenes a little bit more, you can understand how something works. And 8, I'm definitively lower on for a couple different reasons. The first and foremost is, as a person with extremely specific knowledge of the geography of New York City, I have some specific problems when it comes to a major chase sequence that occurs. Because 8 came out in 2016 or 2017?
Last year, 2017.
I went to Cleveland to cover the RNC right after they had filmed the scene where they ruined a building in Cleveland for a movie. That was when all the cars come out of that garage. That was in Cleveland. I went to the RNC, which is right in downtown Cleveland, and you see the city of Cleveland and you kind of get a sense of its perspective. And so when I'm in the theater in Queens watching Fast 8, And I'm literally seeing crap that I saw at the damn RNC, and like they get from Midtown to the island in under 20 minutes. And, like, it's like so infuriating as a person who has to deal with this goddamn transit system that a bunch of like car people were able to, like, the geography it like strains the brain.
Sometimes Joey and I talk about distances between stuff, like how fast it is and then how fast it would take us in Fast and Furious time.
Yeah.
We're like, oh yeah, like it would be like 20 minutes from my house to your house in Fast and Furious time. Like,
yeah. The cops wouldn't chase us because we're doing over 170 kilometers an hour or whatever.
Exactly,
Yep.
Yeah.
But what if your car's invisible? Anyway, but yeah. Steal cop cars, folks. That's how you avoid tickets.
We don't like it, or I mean, I especially don't like it because it's Dom against the family. Like here, like the last movie 4, which we just recorded a couple days ago, and then this one, the early ones have family, but these are really the core of the Dom, Brian, Mia.
We pivot
now
to family
Mia's pregnant. Like this
firmly
is
in 4, like 4
this
and
is
5.
yeah.
This is because everybody comes back here. You know what I mean? This is like the first time we see like the whole crew and the ensemble come together.
At a certain point, like, if you think about some of the creative influences on the Fast and the Furious, we can talk about this later, but the thing that I talked about in the Vin Diesel thing is that I think that Vin Diesel's core creative influence in life is Dungeons & Dragons, which makes him a fascinating filmmaker.
Yes.
Because that's not true for many other people. And again, we can table that as long as you guys want, but I think that with the introduction of Dwayne Johnson and the more action names that got added, it started getting less about that vision and more about, like, the wrestling-based vision in a lot of ways of, like, oh, that's a heel turn, and then, oh, we gotta flip this, and, like, people were always very fluid morally in the Fast and Furious universe, but there was never really a major heel turn until 8, especially of a character that magnitude. So it's complicated, I get it, but I'm definitely more interested in the storytelling style of when it's Diesel's franchise through and through.
Is he still like in charge of it creatively? We haven't done any of the like interesting trivia kind of research yet because we're still early and we don't want to blow.
Yeah, we're saving that for like when we've seen these movies 6 or 7 times each. We have nothing left to say. Let's look on IMDb and let's do a little bit of research. So we don't really know much behind the scenes, but like how much in control is he, or has some of that ceded to The Rock, or is it, or do they have no control over it?
As I remember, Vin Diesel is the executive producer of these movies. And executive producer, they are somebody who's steering the conversation. Producers are the people who are making the phone calls to hire people. They're making hiring decisions.
Okay.
Whenever you see produced by, that person made the movie, right?
Okay.
Executive producer means that they're an essential component and they get a creative control in some way, shape, or form in the movie. And as a result, a great example of this is that if you watched like Maniac on Netflix, both Jonah Hill and Emma Stone are executive producers on that. Now, that doesn't mean that they were deciding who to hire for the cinematography department, but what that means is that the reason that they signed on was so that they could integrate the project with some of their own creative vision.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it's a very squishy credit. Sometimes they toss it to a guy who's funding the movie, which is why when you see, there's a lot of really great examples of that, but you'll see a lot of times on Netflix productions, Ted Sarandos is an executive producer or one of his subsidiaries, because they're the people throwing the money at the problem.
Gotcha.
And so that's what it gets. But basically, executive producer is a high-ranking title for somebody who does get some creative control, either because they're the guy who's holding the bag or they're the star who's coming on to produce it. And so a lot of the times you're going to see people set up like quote-unquote shingles, and the idea is that that's their production studio. So the real thing that's interesting to watch with the Fast and Furious franchise is that it's made by, I believe, Vin Diesel's production company, One Drive.
Okay.
I can pull up IMDb to check on this more, or we can table that for later, but my understanding is that these movies literally would not have happened after the third one had Vin Diesel not agreed to come back. And the reason that he agreed to come back was he did the cameo at the end of Tokyo Drift in exchange for Universal funding the first film in the Chronicles of Riddick franchise.
Yeah.
And he came back and did the fifth one. This is his big return. The fourth one, I'm sorry, Fast and Furious. He agreed to come back so that they would fund the second movie in the Chronicles of Riddick franchise. And I believe it was the same deal with the fifth. So the idea is that he is using this as a bargaining chip. He'll get creative control over it, and he'll get to make the movie that he wants to make.
And it seems like until recently, when he started beefing with The Rock, that he also wanted to do this. Like it's not really like a one for you, one for us sort of situation, because it feels like he wants to do both. Now, there's tension and stuff like that, but it feels like a good trade-off for him. Like, he gets to make...
Is there still tension? Didn't we have that Instagram moment where he was like, with The Rock was on the set of it, and they kind of like made amends or something?
I don't know, because I mean, like, there's the whole Hobbs and Shaw movie that Vin Diesel's not... Like, I think...
And that is happening.
As the core family member in these movies, right? Like, the fact that they're like, hey, we can make a movie without you, like, even if he's like, I'm cool with it, there's probably some part of that Hollywood ego that's like, well,
It's my movies. Yeah, I would feel the same way. I agree.
Not saying there's anything wrong with that. But, okay, so, well, before we get too much deeper into these, because I want to talk about the characters, I want to talk about the actors, all this different stuff, we have some questions for you.
Totally.
Our lightning round. No wrong answers. These are all opinion, really.
Oh, boy.
If you had to say, are you more of a Brian or a Dom?
Damn. Dom.
Family.
Yeah.
Are you more Mia or Letty?
Letty.
Okay. You're just crushing skulls all the time, aren't you?
I know.
Yeah.
Roman or a Tej? Not really, crushing skulls here, but are you a Roman or are you a Tej?
That's interesting, and that's very hard. So again, like I make like sometimes bots for a living and whatnot as part of my job. So
okay.
I'm gonna say I'm Tej, right?
So you're good with circuits?
Yeah, I would say I'm more circus than the face, but I mean it kind of depends on what comes up.
I like that they position Tej. They're like, we need a guy that's good with circuits.
Yeah,
and he rigged a bridge once, and now he's just like a computer hacker. Like that logical jump. That, like circuits was the right word because I was trying to figure out how they got there in this movie, this watch. And
like, doesn't he steal a satellite?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, here's the thing. Clock into work, I'm a Tej. Clock out of work, I'm a real Roman.
Okay.
Yeah.
At work, Tej.
Yeah.
At home, Roman.
Tej in the streets, Roman in the sheets.
Yeah, so a Tej, a Letty, and a Dom. I have a drinking problem is what I'm trying to say.
I've told this story in this podcast before, but when I was at South by Southwest in 2015, they announced, and I just happened to be at the theater where they were giving away tickets, they announced free tickets for the Furious 7 world premiere or outside of LA world premiere or whatever.
Whoa.
Tyrese came out on stage,
hey.
That night and basically fucked the whole crowd with his voice, for lack of a better phrase. Like, he basically chased everyone up. Like, James Wan was there, producers were there. Like, there were a handful of people there. And he basically was like, look, leave. This is the Roman show. This is the Tyrese show right now. And just, I don't remember what he said. I just remember how he said it. And I was like, oh, he would be able to have sex with not just any woman in this room, any person in this room would have sex with Tyrese right now because of the way that he just spoke to the entire room. So anybody who says, either at home or at work or at all, that they're a little bit of a Roman, props to them.
Yeah.
All right, this is a later movie question. They're not in these yet. Are you a Deckard or are you an Owen?
Like, I want to think I'm methodical and all that kind of stuff, but I think I just, like, will definitely... Yeah, I think I'm a Statham.
Yeah, okay, cool.
That's knowing thyself, all right? That's what that is. That's self-knowledge. That's knowing your own flaws.
Do you prefer American muscle or imports?
I gotta go American.
Damn.
I'm a patriot. What can I say?
Yeah.
I know. I think... So we've now polled 9 people. The only person who has picked import is Joe 2 over there. So,
yeah, that's me.
Interesting.
Everybody else loves American muscle or pickup trucks.
Even our
Really?
foreign guests
Yeah,
liked American muscles.
Like, again, I've never been a big gearhead, but, like, the car that I coveted when I was young was a Dodge Challenger. Now, I don't know necessarily what that says about me, but, like... I don't know if they make that vehicle anymore. I also know that they have a somewhat notorious Charger and whatnot. But like I would,
he drives a Challenger in one of them. I forget which one. Yeah, but he drives a Challenger at some point. And the cop cars in this are Challengers, aren't they? Or are they Chargers?
Yeah, they're not Crown Vics. No. Yeah, no, I think. Yeah, I mean, if you compare the I'm a big fan of Bond as well. Again, 2 large car franchises for a person who does not truly care for the automobile.
Yeah.
I always prefer the cars in Fast and Furious than I do in the Bond one. Just
cool.
Again,
Yeah,
you gotta like this domestics.
No wrong answer here, although there's sort of a more right answer. Do you prefer Corona or a Belgian ale?
Corona. Literally, no joke. We do you hold the neck of the bottle and we all cheers and go, family. That's the thing that my friend group does. It's dumb as hell. And, like, I don't really like beer that much. I'm kind of, like, I'm very much a whiskey soda guy, but, like, you know what? I do that. I hold the neck of the damn Corona, and I would like to put a lime in it because it is Corona and it tastes like Corona. But,
yeah,
I gotta go with that. Again, not a beer guy. Kind of a wimp on that one. So Corona, it tastes like water or urine, and honestly, I can deal with it.
My friend has a theory that every Corona that he's ever drank has been skunked.
He's correct, right?
I think that, yeah. He's like, I think
no, it's the clear bottle thing.
Yeah, it's a clear bottle thing. That's what he says. He's like, every one I've ever had is skunked. Like, he's actually curious what it tastes like fresh. Because I have to imagine it's a completely different experience. But yeah, I feel you.
I've also only had it at like the beach, which is a great way to like get too drunk too quickly in the sun, so that you don't care about the taste of the Corona that you're drinking. Right?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
They're drinking beer in this movie, but it's not Corona.
And I know what it is.
Oh? What is it?
It is a Brahma.
Okay.
Which is the largest, like one of the largest beer brands in the world, like top 10. And it's also owned by, and at the time of the movie shoot was owned by AB InBev, who owns Corona.
Anheuser-Busch?
Yeah. AB InBev. Yeah.
It's a Brazilian Corona.
It's a Brazilian Corona, essentially, yeah.
Okay.
The top 2% of the beer companies make 99% of the... like, it's just like... most of the beer is InBev or Heineken or whatever.
Constellation. Yeah, Heineken.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
All right, last question, unless we have one for this movie. Walt, if you had to choose, are you more of a racer or a designer? Are you the one in the car, or are you the one getting the car ready?
Yeah, I'd say a designer, you know? So I listened to the first lap of this podcast, because I didn't want to retread any stuff that you really went down into.
Fine.
And one thing that I truly appreciated that you guys highlighted that I loved in the film was in Fast 5 when they're racing and they're trying out the ride to see if they can get through the cameras and they're going through the maze. Everybody gets behind the wheel, whether it's one of the designers, whether it's the muscle, any of that kind of stuff. And like, I really appreciate that you guys highlighted that, because I think that that's such a good moment and kind of about the egalitarian nature of this heist and that kind of stuff. So like, I appreciated that you guys highlighted that, because I felt like the good thing about this group is that drivers, technicians, they're all on the same tier, whereas other heists that I've seen, you know, not the same way.
Exactly. You need like one driver, but no, they're giving everybody a shot. Everybody gets a chance.
Yeah. And I think this movie has it's sort of on the cusp of where they all become superhuman at everything, but they all still have their own identity here. Like when they're looking at the security footage, like Han knows what it is, and like, you know, Tej knows like how to evade it. Like you can't hack that, and kind of like everybody has their skills, as opposed to in a movie or two where they're all just martial artists, superstar drivers, action heroes, all that sort of stuff. But they're teetering on the cusp here, but they are all still in their own sort of era, which is cool.
For sure.
It's very cool. Now, Joe, do we have an either or from this movie or no?
Ooh,
like I was thinking like Rico or Tego, but I don't know which is which, and so I can't, like, that's not a good one.
The one that only speaks Spanish or the one that sometimes speaks English? Like, which one is it? Yeah.
Do you bet on black, or do you... Ooh, that's a good one. Whoa. Do you put it all on black, or do you put it all on red?
Black. That's the thing, black, yeah.
Okay.
Black,
right. Yeah. I would have done black, too.
Well, we're going to find out in the... relap recap for you and me, Joe. So
okay.
Cool. I took so many notes on this movie the first time around. I didn't take that many this time around, but I do have some things here to say about this movie. Number one, I think it's interesting to watch The Rock in this movie, because I don't know if it's the writing, I don't know if it's the acting, or I don't know if it is a combination, or just the fact that he is 100% business as opposed to just business and family. But he feels a little bit more stilted in this than he does in later movies. Like, he feels like his delivery isn't as fun. Like, he's real serious.
Yeah, he is definitely more serious.
And I don't know if that's by choice or because they haven't really found the character's voice yet or not, but I thought this time around I was like, oh, he's military, as opposed to just like, you know, cop. He's military, and it was not surprising to see, but something I never really, I don't think, picked up on previous watches.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing that you kind of picked up on there, because if you kind of look at the movies that he was making at the time, I would say that he's struggling, honestly, with getting from being a very reliable military character. He hammered that down pretty quick, to being like a bona fide funny character. If you watch like in the ensuing years ahead of when he actually ended up filming this movie, right? You've got movies that are like Get Smart. You've got movies that are like The Game Plan, Southland Tales, which is kind of a pretty notorious example of like a movie where he tries humor and it doesn't super work. And so he's very much like Tooth Fairies before this, which is fine, but he's definitely working on this, I would say. I like The Rock a lot, because you can actually really watch him grow as an actor if you start at the beginning and walk through. And I think that Fast 5 is really when he starts trying to move into roles that are meatier than necessarily just like strong guy, right? Like, he'll still do your G.I. Joe retaliations, but he's still but he'll do it the same year that he does a Pain and Gain. And that's what this kind of role gets him really into, I think.
Which is weird, because like when he was like a wrestler, he was kind of comic relief. Like, he was serious, but it was more fun and funny, so it's like kind of him like refinding his old character anyways, you know? Because I think later on in the Fast and Furious movies, he becomes more like The Rock that we envision.
Oh yeah, because like there's no, like, I don't see any correlation here between this character and the guy who coaches his daughter's soccer team. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
Right.
as much as I don't like 8, I love The Rock in 8. Like, he is so good in that, and, like, that character is evolved to a place where it's just like, oh, this is awesome. Like, Hobbs is great, to the point where, like, yeah, fuck yeah, I want a Hobbs and Shaw movie. You know what I mean? So, not that he's bad in this, it's just, it's a very different Hobbs. I feel like
You're right.
probably all the characters evolve, but I feel like this one is very noticeable in terms of where he comes from and where he gets to.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that one, just because essentially, like, The Rock he went from being literally the most charismatic wrestler in a generation, and then he became the meatiest actor, and like that was an immediate job switch because he immediately was typecasted as big strong man, and then he spent his career trying to get back to being the most charismatic in his game, and I think by and large he has absolutely succeeded. He's like again he's the most liked actor based on the polling out there. Like he's like people like him more than every other actor, and I think that if you look at his career, he started off as like wrestler coming in from a different system I think than necessarily the one that McMahon had built, and then he really kind of came in and he was the most charismatic man, and then he had to start back at the bottom again. And I think that this is a super important movie actually in his turn to a face, so to speak.
Yeah. Another thing that's sort of similar, I think, to that is that we were noticing, when we watched the first one, Fast and Furious in 2001, we were like, oh, Vin Diesel's so little. Like, he's obviously, like, still ripped, but he's, like, little. And then, I was noticing on Fast and Furious 4, he's bigger, but he's still not, like, hulking. And this movie, I think maybe because The Rock is in it, there's a noticeable, like, he is big now.
Yeah.
And, I think it's at the end of 6, where he have, like, the face-to-face where they're, like, the heads are both in the same shot. They both look gigantic people. But I think there is something to be said about bringing another guy who is physically, literally bigger than Vin Diesel into your movie, that Vin Diesel's like, oh no, I also need to be huge too. And he like bulked up for this, I feel like.
Definitely.
I don't know if it's for these movies or for that reason. Maybe it was coincidence, but I feel like he is definitely the biggest, like it's a sizable jump, I think, from 4 to 5.
Yeah. I think, here's the thing, all right? Dom had to learn a lesson, all right? Cars aren't the solution to all life's problems. Sometimes violence is the solution to some of life's problems.
Yeah,
and he had to get bigger. Yeah, so I think that's definitely a core part of the arc.
Do you think that The Rock is the sweatiest in any of the Fast and the Furious in this one? Because he's just like constantly dripping sweat.
Yeah.
There's scenes that they're in Rio, and like Brian and Dom look so relaxed, and The Rock is just drenched. And I don't know if that, like if they just had like a spray bottle that they're just spraying him with in the side or something, but he's just like covered, like just wet and glistening the whole movie. Like not like baby oil, but just like water.
One of the skills that Dwayne Johnson brings to literally every movie, and that's the thing that you have to be good at in wrestling, you have to be able to sell that you are tired, beaten up, and exhausted. If you watch a movie with Dwayne Johnson, one of his kind of unheralded acting skills is that you believe that he is so goddamn tired. Like if you watch like Skyscraper, the most recent thing that he's in, he's like burned out immediately, and you can just like smell it on him. And that's just, but like that's a skill that I think that a lot of people don't necessarily recognize. Like there are people who you can watch a lot of Marvel movies and watch Robert Downey Jr. not break a sweat. And Chris Evans can do stuff and make it look effortless, which I mean that's part of the character that he's playing. But the reality is that the thing that Dwayne Johnson's always been great at is selling every punch. And I think that is a skill that has like kind of been a little bit under the radar. That I think he really sells in this movie. Of like, yeah, if I went to Brazil, do you have any idea how much I'd be sweating?
Oh, I'd be so sweaty.
I live in freaking Queens. It peaked at 90 this year, and I stayed indoors and didn't look at a sun. Like if I went to Brazil, I'd die. Like.
And I also think, not so coincidentally, he's also under the most pressure in this movie. Like, by the end, where he is sort of released from his job with the law, I guess. I mean, he is, in this movie, sent overseas to bring these people home. And, like, even if he's the best in the world at his job, that Old Testament kind of guy, what do they say, blood, bullets, wrath of God.
Yeah.
Like, he is, like, the world's pressure is on him to bring home these 3 fugitives, and I feel like he's nervous, or not maybe nervous, but like amped up because of that too. So it's not only just the temperature, but he's like, I gotta do this otherwise, because like I'm the best in the world. If I mess up at this, like who's gonna get him? Like nobody's gonna get him. So not only the weight on his shoulders as franchise Viagra, which I don't know if that was a Walt term or if I heard that somewhere else, but in this movie as a character, like I am the person who has to save the day to bring these wanted fugitives to justice.
Yeah, no, I think he's quite a good actor, and I think that you hit the nail on the head on that one.
Another thing I noticed about this movie this time around was how much movie there is before, like, the main plot begins. Like, they don't have that Ocean's 11 style conversation until 40 minutes into the movie. And then at that point, there's like 95 minutes left. And that's like the equivalent of the first movie's like runtime in total. You know what I mean? Like, there is so much to get us to the point where, like, okay, we need to bring the family in on this one. And then there's just, you know, from there on, it's the movie that you think about. But like the whole like first 40 minutes, you know, there's a lot that happens there. And this is like a sizable jump. Like, I think, what was the last movie, Joe? Like an hour 50 or whatever? Like, this is an extra 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Fate of the Furious, especially the extended cut, is like 2.5 hours. Like, this is a sizable jump. I just didn't realize before how much movie. I mean, it's all stuff I love, but literally how much movie there was before the movie that I remember this as sort of kicks off.
You have 3 action set pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we get to this point where, like, you have, like, the 40 minutes of setup, and then I think the turning point is them trying to go get cars, right? Like, they're like, okay, we're going to go get cars, and they just totally fast forward over what would be the pivotal beginning drag race in the movie. From all the other movies up until now, you have like that like first race that like kind of like sets the movie off, and you don't have that here. Like, we get to the point and they're like, okay, we're going to have the first race. Dom sees the guy with the Porsche, and they're about to throw down, and they just like skip it and drive back with the car. Like, you just know that he won, that you just, like, play it out in your head. And that's, like, really weird. This is where the movies had shifted, but them skipping the race is, like, the main turning point for me. Like, that you don't see the drag race. Like, that's where it's, like, it's no longer a car movie. We're not going to give you that. Like, just play it in your head. You've seen it before. Now we're going to action.
Yeah, like, it's a movie that fans went into for wanting them to play the hits. And in 5, they're just like, oh, no, you're not going to get the big one until the end. They make you wait for it, and they make you, like... And then when it happens, you're just like, wow, what a great quarter mile. Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I agree. But I was just like, oh, man, they're setting you up to tell you that, like, oh, no, we're, like, doing this different this time. Like, it's not going to be like what you thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, like, the first scene is they have a fight with a bus, and they use cars to win it.
Yeah. It's a good start.
And then they have a fight with the train, and again, they use cars to win it. And they steal a car. Too. I mean, they really steal a computer that has been smuggled within a car, and then that only then do they realize who the bad guy eventually is that they're going to rob.
Yeah. What I do love about the opening, though, and I tweeted this, I don't know if either of you saw it, but the title card in this movie, I'm always fascinated by how long into a movie a title card drops. This one's under 2 minutes. Like, we have basically the end of 4. We have here that Mia pulls a great handbrake 180, like an e-brake 180, and then sort of makes the bus veer. Paul Walker, Brian slams on his brakes, the bus flips over his car, crashes, fast 5. A minute 55
with 27 people on board, at minimum, right?
We talk about this all the time. There's so much gratuitous death in these movies that just is totally happy.
And it wasn't, like, early on, there wasn't. Like deaths mattered, and here, the safe at the end, like, kills probably dozens of like innocent people who don't even probably know who Reyes is, but they're just like shopping or at the bank, and like they just get obliterated by a safe rolling through town. Like, there is lots of death in this movie.
They do take great pains though to make you feel not guilty at all about the death. And there's 2 lines in the movies that do it. The first one is that they were just like, the news reporters just like, shockingly, no fatalities reported on the bus explosion. Which is great. And that's just literally, you wrote 1 line to remove the guilt. And then the second one is just like, oh yeah, every corrupt cop in Brazil is behind you. So it's just, they're not people. They're like...
Yeah.
But, you know, like, I mean, they are corrupt cops, but they're also like just probably poor Brazilian men who need to feed their wife and kids and like are just taking money under the table in exchange for protection, and like they're gonna get killed too, which I guess, you know, crime doesn't pay or whatever. But like, compare that to like Mandy, which the title card drops literally 75 minutes into the movie, and they're both perfect, this movie and that movie, and I'm like, that's fascinating to me. Like, when the movie knows when to throw that title card in, which I think this movie does, because it's like, cool, 2 minutes, here we are, like, we're in Fast 5, like, this is the movie you came to see, and it's like, oh yeah. Whenever that comes in, I'm just like, yes, this is, you know, it's somebody who knows, like, there's an art to it, I think. Like, you don't have to put a title card in, but like, when they do, if they do, I think it's great here.
Hard agree.
Do you guys feel bad at all? Brian was a cop the whole time. Pretty shitty cop. He lets Dom go, sure, but he was a cop and like fucked over the family essentially for like a couple times now. And then Vince comes back, and Dom is giving Vince shit about Brian. Like, him not accepting Brian. And I felt like this was a justice for Vince kind of moment.
Well, because we just saw in the last movie that, like, Dom reacted the same way Vince did, and like nobody was there to stand up. You know what I mean? Like, it's...
Yeah.
Let him have his anger.
Yeah, like, Dom's like, no, Brian's cool now. We're okay. And you're like, but why? Like, you don't even know that your sister's pregnant yet. Like, just because he rescued you from the fucking bus doesn't make up for him, like, almost putting you in jail twice.
Well, he saved him 3 times by now, to be honest. He let him go in the first movie.
Yeah.
He saved him in the second movie, or the fourth movie.
Okay.
He freed him here in the 5th movie. But I guess still, like, he'd be like, hey, man, Vince, like, he's cool. But, like, he gets aggressive toward Vince. I agree.
Yeah, he's like, he's so angry at Vince for, like, not trusting Brian. When Vince was the first one that was like, Brian's a cop, you know it. I was like, man, they gave Vince, like, he's giving Vince too much shit here. Like, I think Vince has a valid point. If they're just like, dude, this is why I'm in Brazil now. I have to be in hiding because of your ass. So this is what happened.
I have a question for you, too. And this is something, Joe, that you and I have talked about before. I just need elaboration on the timeline. So, okay. So we know that Tokyo Drift takes place after 6, right?
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah.
Han is in this movie, so this takes place before, obviously.
Yes.
In 4, Han is in the beginning, but when they're under pressure, right? They say, like, where are you going to go? And he says, I hear Tokyo's nice this time of year.
Yes.
And then leaves for the entire movie. I know that it's easier to think 4 than 5 than 6 than 3 than 7. In my head, I still can't get over the fact, because I know that also parts of, like 4 then leads into 5, but, like, where'd Han go in 4?
I think he did go back to Tokyo, but then I think he comes back from Tokyo to Brazil. And then when he's with Gal Gadot, and she's like, we should go to Tokyo, and he's like, we'll get there eventually. Like, he'll go back with her eventually, is what he's saying. Not that he's never been there before.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
The idea is that we all know that he's gonna die in Tokyo. And that's,
right.
Like, we know that from the very beginning. But I think that, like, you're allowed to hang out every couple now and again in the city in which you eventually die, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, I mean, the idea is, like, maybe, like, he's not going there. If he's not like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go, and then I'm going to meet a new friend, and then I'm going to, I'm going to steal a car. Like, he doesn't necessarily have to go back and do the itinerary that will eventually kill him.
Right.
He could just kind of venture back. And it's like when you're in a video game, and you know you're kind of at the end of the video game, but you keep on doing the side quests for a little while, so that you don't actually have to trigger the end game.
It's like the 3rd disc in Final Fantasy VIII, where you, like, as soon as you go to the 4th disc and everything closes off, you're like, I don't want to leave yet because I still gotta play cards. Like, I gotta play the Triple Triad, get all my cards so that I can then play the 4th disc. I know exactly what you're talking about. Great metaphor, Walt.
It's like you're in BioShock and you're literally reading every goddamn paper that you see just to find any backup, because you know that eventually you're gonna have to do something messed up. And so, like, no, I would say that that's how I kind of read Han's journey through the Fast and Furious.
Instead of being in Rapture is Tokyo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. One thing that I noticed at the very end of this movie, right, where Dom and Elena show up to Brian and Mia on the beach, and Mia's very pregnant, like, this is, several months in the future, and they want, like, Brian's like, I want that rematch. Like, this feels to me, and I never really thought about this before, sort of like that mythical third fight between Rocky and Apollo that happens at the end of Rocky 3.
Yeah.
That begins Rocky 4, which is like, we don't really know who won, but they raced again.
It
was just like this sort of behind closed doors, hey man, we'll see. But, like, it's 2 of the greats going at it. We don't need to know who won, just that they raced again. That's all we need to know.
And once those guys kind of get past, because again, there are 2 people who would like each other very much, if not for their differing alignments in the beginning. And I think that the fun thing that the Fast and Furious breaks down is that it really breaks down and forces the characters to question what the source of those alignments are. And that, I think, is again a Vin Diesel thing more so than many other creative types, just by virtue of how he kind of picked up on how to tell stories.
You know what that just inspired in me? We talked a lot about how the first one is essentially a reboot or the same story, the same beats as Point Break, right? Where it's cop criminal. I want to, at some point, Joe, future lap, plot out what the equivalent of Point Break 2 through 8 are that go in line with this franchise.
Ooh. I would like that.
That's great.
But, like, they would have been friends, too. Like, they got along. They were just on opposite sides of the law. Like, I would love to see a future where they're just, like, buds. You know what I mean? And, like, he lets Bodhi go again, and then he saves Bodhi's life, and then they're just, robbing banks for
Bodhi's
fun. I don't
sister's
know.
pregnant or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One thing that I heard in this movie that I think, I've obviously heard in the past but never really thought about is that Dom is talking about his dad. He's talking about his dad in relation to Brian becoming a dad, right? And, like, how important it is to become a dad. I'm like, for somebody who is so all about family, obviously there's Mia, but, like, we don't really get a ton of references to his other family. I mean, like, we know that there's going to be the Netflix series about his cousin, who we don't know in real life yet, but I'm sort of surprised that there aren't more
His
know,
mom.
memories or flashbacks or something.
We don't even get like pictures in the old house. You know what I mean?
I think that's essential, though. I think that, again, like the key theme of these movies is that these guys choose their family. The idea is that they have an opportunity to... Lots of stuff happen, lots of people... Like, many of these characters are lost in the world for a lot of reason. Again, Han's relationship with his family is what kills him. Like, and the idea is that, like, I think that if you look at many of these different characters, that is not a drawback, but I think also there might be good reason for that psychologically for one... Like, it's a lot easier to do a background if you don't have to... Like, a lot of movies are obsessed to the point of ridiculousness with legacy these days. You can look at, again, like, I like the new Star Wars movies a lot, but one critique of the prequels is why does all these movies have to be about somebody's dad or somebody's paternity or somebody inheriting... And the idea is, like, most people don't inherit crap, and the idea is, like, the ability to forge your own group and your own alliances and that kind of stuff, I think, is an essential part of these movies that I think always appealed to why they were so... people can kind of put their own mentality into them and onto them and about them and that kind of stuff.
That's one of my favorite parts about the Fast and Furious 2, just generally, that like you can find something, a character in them to gravitate towards, no matter like where you stand in life. Like you can find somebody that's relatable for you in there. Like once you get to like the family where you have everyone now, like you can pick a character and you'd be like, you know what, like I might not like this character, but like that would be me in this group.
And we will find out exactly who Walt will be a little bit later when we play the quiz, which Fast and Furious character are you?
Oh, boy.
The one thing that we have not really... I want to bring this up to every guest because I want to extend the gospel of resident historian Mike Manzi. The one thing that we think that the series is kind of lacking in terms of representation is gay characters. And there's Suki in Too Fast, Too Furious
But that's it. And she just like hints at it. Yeah.
But Mike, Walt, who we recorded the Cage Club episode with... He has an idea that he thinks there's a chance that The Rock's character, even though he has a daughter, is gay. And we would love to see that as... Because he is eternally, in his movies, almost asexual. He's all about business. He's all about getting the job done. But it feels like there's... Maybe it's just because he's all business, but the way that he... In the 8th movie, right, where he's got that, like, flock of soccer moms...
He picks Elena out, but he doesn't, like, He's like, I like her smile, and, like, she's not going to give up. So, like, he picks a woman, but it's not like he's, like, trying to, like, woo her, or, like, he liked her physically. Because he never makes, like, a pass at Elena at all.
Oh, yeah.
And we would love that. So... opinions on whether The Rock you think that could be gay or if there's not enough, like, because I feel like ethnically there's enough representation across the board. Geographically where these movies take place there is men and women represented, but like in terms of like there's just Suki, but like I would love if Mike's theory is right that The Rock is he doesn't have to make a big deal about it. It's just my boyfriend, my partner, whatever.
So The Rock has played gay before.
When?
Played in Be Cool.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, so again, the only reason I saw Be Cool, which is an awful, terrible movie, is because I did this project and I watched all the Rock movies, right? In that, and like the idea is like, again, he plays it in a way that it's not overbroad or anything like that, so I can see it. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can see him playing like a character that you don't necessarily need to have that, like, the author come out like and be all Dumbledore about it. I think that he can play a character that he knows is and play it with fidelity and with masculinity and all that kind of stuff in a way that you wouldn't necessarily know, And the idea is, I think that it's kind of up to either the producers or stuff like that, but I think the idea in general is like, it's within his range, and I think that he has been willing to play characters of sexualities that are not his own before, and I think that it would be interesting to watch it move forward, and I like that idea.
Because we're like, what if Hobbs and Shaw turns into them being like a team? But, I mean, he could also play it, like, very simply, like Joey said, and be like, oh, yeah, I just, like, reference my partner. Like, oh, yeah, like, gotta call my partner. And then, comes back. But, I mean, I could see any of these outcomes happening. We've hit, like, a lot of the spreading of this to where, like, we include a lot of different races and stuff like that. So for them to just, like, have Suki in 2 and then not really address this again is kind of interesting.
Especially given how sexualized, not about actually having sex, but how sexualized the entire franchise is. Like, how many ass shots, how many cleavage shots, how many shirtless dudes,
biceps,
right? Like, there's... like
abs,
sex, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
From that incredible thing that Walt shared with us, the stats of the Furious, like bicep shots and stuff like that, right? Like, there's so much attention paid to the human body, the human form in these movies, to just sort of gloss over that. It just feels a little strange.
We don't get really any sex shots in the movies at all, though.
No, but I mean, you also have, in the later movies, Roman and Tej incessantly hitting on Ramsey. You know what I mean?
But you don't. But like you're saying, like they're sexualized, but not sex, because like we don't even see any. I think like Brian and Mia wake up in the garage. Like, maybe Dom and Letty, they wake up one time. They don't even, like, hint to sex in these movies very often.
And I guess that it also plays into these as sort of, in a weird way, like, wholesome movies. Like, they're all PG-13. There's rarely, they don't often, I don't think, curse. Like, there is, The Rock says in this time, say the fuck out of my way. And I was like, oh, like, that almost feels out of place in this movie. Like, I know you're allowed one in a
you get your one,
movie, but it almost feels like that doesn't belong here.
Don't they give it to The Rock in other ones? I think that, doesn't he have it in 7?
I know it happens again, but it just still feels in this weird way like it shouldn't happen.
There's nothing as good as a PG-13 Dwayne Johnson getting to say the one fuck. It's so good. The man sells it. He does it more than once. I should have written down or researched this, but like I just know that whenever Dwayne Johnson gets the fuck, it's amazing.
If we needed a tagline for each episode, that would be it. Whenever Dwayne Johnson gets the fuck, it's the best.
Do you guys think the writing of The Fast and Furious is sophisticated enough at this point? Elena picking up the chain is significant foreshadowing for the later movies.
Are you saying do they have enough mapped out that they know where this is going to wind up?
Yes, because like Elena picks up the chain and puts it on, and that was like Dom's chain, that was Letty's chain, that's Dom's chain.
But we also talked about in the last episode that like that is the sisterhood of the traveling pants. Like that, just everybody has it. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's foreshadowing that it's going to be used.
But really,
to rescue
the only
her.
People that have it are Elena, Letty, and Dom.
Well, I think Braga wore it last time. I think.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Braga finds the chain and his goon has the chain. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever played D&D?
No.
The core, like my entire interpretation of the career of Vin Diesel, again, boils down to the fact that when every other filmmaker, director, or basically creative influencer, and as a guy with an EP on a number of projects, I think that he absolutely deserves that title. Every other person learned everything they know about story from like the Joseph Campbell, Hero's Journey, Star Wars. Whereas Vin Diesel learned it from D&D and learned it from Gary Gygax, which is why when you look at what they try to do with like other franchises, they try to have 3 picture arcs where the hero is spurned, learns something, becomes better at it, and then conquers again. And that's just, again, the tale as old as time, the conquering hero story, all that kind of stuff. But no goddamn Vin Diesel movies do that. They scale upwards. They gain more friends. They gain more allies. They grow as a party. The scope of the mission rises, changes. Yeah. They gain new skills. Old friends become enemies. Sometimes enemies become friends, and that kind of stuff. And that is literally the entire game of Dungeons & Dragons. It's an iterative. You scale. You get better as you get along. And you build a crew, and you build a party, and people leave, and people come. This movie is when the party comes together, and I think that what's so interesting about this storytelling style is that essentially, like, that's what's going to... And if you look at, like, that chain...
So it's like an item.
You have a list of important items in your party, and you track that item over time, and you know that it matters, and you impart more meaning with it every time, and then sometimes it moves around and all that kind of stuff. And you could probably trace that through a number of different components of these guys' kits and what they own and what they possess and that over the course of these movies. That would not shock me if they had planned that far out ahead, because that's literally just what Vin Diesel knows about making movies. Chronicles of Riddick is a 3-picture D&D campaign with a character of Riddick.
Which is his character.
It is
D&D character, right?
His fucking it's a version of that. And literally, the 3 movies could not be more tonally or plot-wise different. One of them is like a space war, and the other one is like a survival epic, and the other one is like, how do we solve this problem and save this planet? And so all of those are like D&D quests for this character, Riddick. And the people change every time, enemy becomes a friend, all that kind of stuff. And like, if you look at his style of storytelling and you look at least his influences, he's much more Gary Gygax influences when it comes to how you tell a saga than he is a George Lucas influence, which I think every other person in the industry is, to, I believe, its detriment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now that you say that, and with knowing his background like this, I do think he had some foresight. That's why I was asking the question. I do think that he knew where this was going, and that they could weave some of these things back into the movies. Because we've seen them attempt stuff like them calling Brian Bullet which they don't carry out and stuff like that. So they leave little tidbits in them for them to carry on if they want, and if not, they just drop them.
But I don't think it's like in again, like to go back to Star Wars, I don't think it's like them trying to like make Han Solo's dice into a thing. I think that he knew that chain would be pregnant with meaning over the course of the movies and wanted to make sure that he brought it up and touch base with it every time.
Like, I don't think they knew that in 3 movies he was going to implant a tracking chip in it and then save Elena or save the baby. But I think that, you know, if they know that this character is going to be like fall in love with Dom, right, and like be sort of the bridge while Letty is supposedly dead, I can see that there's a very solid reason there. Like, I don't think that they, you know, went to the 8th degree, but I can see them going to the next
that's
one.
That's what I'm saying, because now you just see him give it to Elena. So I think that's a little hint for the next one that, like, he and Elena will have a relationship. That's what I was getting at.
But, like, what I would say to that is that it's almost asking it the wrong way. It's like, if you ask the writers or the creators of Five, hey, in a couple movies, is this item which item is going to get implanted with what? And ask them that, they wouldn't know. But if you ask them, like, hey, if you had to pick an item that we have that's going to get a tracking chip in it, they're probably going to say the necklace, because like the idea is that these different items are like, you make a couple things that you come back to, whether it's, you know, the beer kind of thing, and you make these notes that you return to each time that have a familiarity with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
One thing I want to talk about in this movie, this I think is my favorite Roman in any of the movies that I was talking about.
But yeah,
I hate 8 Roman. Like 8 Roman is, like, I think this Roman would be embarrassed of 8 Roman. Roman in the 8th movie is such a pure caricature where everything has to be a joke, where nothing has stakes. Like, he is the butt of a joke, or he's making a joke, or whatever. Here, he's making jokes, but he still has conviction. Like, he's like, oh, this doesn't seem personal. This seems personal. It's like, this isn't business. I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
Then he hears it's for $100 million. He's like, well, you know, whatever. Like, that feels so true to me that this is the Roman that we know from 2. That I think by the time we get to 8, where everything he says has to be a joke, as opposed to, like, him being good at things and then splashing jokes in, this is what I love. I think where 8 brings him to, it's like an elevated, heightened level that I just don't find enjoyable. Like, I feel like it betrays the character.
I think that it's the D&D character development where he just becomes, like, peak funny. Like, he just leveling up in funny skills the whole time.
I don't think it's peak funny, though.
And whenever you get to 8, he just has, like, maximum funny. No, I mean, that's just personal preference if you think it's funny or not. But, yeah, I think that he's, like, getting there. If we're leveling throughout all the characters, then he's going to eventually become this caricature.
Yeah, I mean, I think that basically, over time, you just accentuate the traits and people improve in skills. Which is why, why you go from knowing a thing or two about how to do a computer thing to hacking a fucking satellite. Like, that's how you... like, that only makes sense if you grow bit by bit over the course of every movie, and you only get from street racer to international spy, right? If you go through different tracks, maybe you do heist movie, and that is kind of how you accelerate that. And so I just think that if you look at the growth curve, like, at times it's unsustainable, but like the reality is that's
what we're saying. How do you one up this? Like, I can't imagine what Fast 9 is going to be like. How can they top Dom going against the family? Like, what's the next big thing? I think they have to cut in a Hobbs and Shaw to, like, give themselves time to breathe and think on it. Like,
yeah, you need, like, either like a villain to kind of unite them all, or there's a lot of different ways that people have kind of gotten around this problem in the past. Like, sometimes, like, a good example is, like, lots of shows did that, like the Justice League shows, for instance. Whenever they kind of ran out of stories to tell or the characters got too powerful, they kind of went with the franchisee model, which is where you open it up and you have different hero in every state, and that's how you are able to tell different stories and that kind of stuff, and, like, you make it a bigger organization. And basically, what if, like, it's like Dom making the crew into an MI6 kind of thing, right? And, like... Or you just kind of keep on raising the stakes, like you start having more global threats and that kind of stuff. And like, you can either raise the stakes, you can either raise the responsibilities, you can do a lot of different things. Like Mission Impossible did this totally. Like Mission Impossible used to be a much smaller scope than the past, like than Fallout was, right? Like, and how you scale these movies in a cohesive way without getting too ridiculous it's been the death of franchises before. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Coherent. I think that Universal knows enough about that to not screw the pooch, because this is really the best thing that they got.
Word.
Walt, have you been to Universal? Have you gone to the Fast and Furious ride down there?
When did it open? Because I was in Islands of Adventure in like 2011.
Oh, it opened this year.
Then I have not. No, I have not.
We took a family field trip down there, and it is great. It's one of those
like
rides
family,
that,
family, or family like you and your friends who are
like the family that we choose.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
And it's one of those rides. We have a whole little mini episode about it. We did live from down there. It's one of those rides that like seems like everything is now down there, like the Simpsons ride, where you just get in a car and you look at screens. But I mean, it's the family, like it's Fast and Furious, like it's awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
they have a lot of nice.
If you find yourself down
it.
in Orlando,
yeah,
go check it out.
Hell yeah! I mean, I'm all about that. I'm very interested in essentially like what theme parks do next, because I think that they're kind of coastered out in a lot of ways, and I think that they realize that having these experiential stuff, the Avatar stuff that they're trying, I think in general that kind of thing is the future, and if it holds up, then that's all that matters.
We went on it twice, and we would have done it at least one more time if we didn't run out of time. But we got nothing but time, but we ran out of time, unfortunately. So, Joe, before we get to if there's anything Walt wants to talk about, Joe, do you have anything else from this movie that you want to talk about before we get onto our games?
The only thing I want to say is one day I would like to jump a car into the water and fall simultaneously with the car.
And jump out of the car as it's falling?
Yes, I want to do that. I think that would be like top existence. Like, I was actually thinking, for segue from your ride thing, that should have been part of the ride in Universal. That you would be like in a car, you get ejected out of it, and then you fall with the car.
I don't want to give Brian shit for not jumping sooner, but it feels like if he jumped from the train sooner onto the car, he would have been able to turn and wouldn't have crashed into the water. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, I agree.
It feels like because he jumps last minute, they're like, well, nowhere to go but the river, so like we're going down there. So
yeah, but that's the last thing I had to say about the movie this time around.
All right, Walt, anything you want to talk about either? Because I mean, we would love to have you back for future movies. We don't have to get everything out in terms of the broad strokes today, but anything else specifically about Fast Five, or anything else that have been really burning a hole in your pocket or whatever the conversation version of that is that you want to talk about on this episode?
Yeah, I mean, like, Gal Gadot, I think, is, like, she really shines in this movie, and I'm so happy that she has the career that she has now. That she's had the opportunity, and that she, like, is, again, the unambiguous shining star of whatever DC's doing right now, and I think that that's totally to her credit. And I think that if you were to compare like her filmography to any of the boys in this movie, it's harder, and like she has overcome quite a bit in order to become the lead that she is today. And I think that like this movie does so much to hammer home just how talented that she is, and how much she can infuse this role that doesn't have a lot with a lot.
No.
It
doesn't.
And I mean, that's not like a knock against the role. I think that this is a movie with so many moving parts. You have 8 people on a heist. You're never going to be able to spend a lot of time with them, especially when you only start the heist 50 minutes in. But like, I think that what she does with this movie is just absolutely outstanding. And the Giselle Han relationship is by far one of my favorite things about this.
It's so good.
Yeah, it is.
Coming from someone who just watched every Charlize Theron movie, like, it is almost indescribably different how much different actresses' careers are from male actors. You know what I mean? Like, it's Charlize from the very beginning was clearly very talented, and she still had to be in way more bad movies than good ones, be objectified way more, to the point where, even though Gal Gadot is who she is, she's still like in Keeping Up with the Joneses. That movie was marketed by that conversation she had with Isla Fisher where she was in her underwear. You know what I mean? Like, they sold that movie based on, hey, you get to see Wonder Woman in her underwear. Like, it just, and she's great in it, and she's super charming, and she's funny, and she and John Hamm are great together in that movie, but like, that movie was sold by her body, and it sucks. Like, I get it, but it sucks. And it's, I agree that she is given almost nothing to do. Like, in the last movie, 4, she is just a bland villain who falls in love with Dom and is now here and just like is tough and puts up with no shit. Like, there's not much to her character, but she is likable and she owns
the
it.
Stuff at the beach, like she's so like again. We'll get to plugs at the end, but I'm on this podcast. Not Her Again.
Yes,
Not Her Again. The first round of it looked at all the years that Meryl Streep lost an Oscar. And just essentially all those performances. Oh, yeah. There were 18 of them. So we had a lot to work with. And it was like 18 different years between 1978 and last year that we looked at how the Oscars changed. And obviously this is a problematic organization and how the industry has treated women over the course of it. It's been super informative. And then this time, this round, we're looking at Julia Roberts, who became the first actor, period, who made $20 million a movie. And just how, like, again, once you hit 40, things become difficult. And she has managed to do some very cool and compelling stuff. And this year, I think, like, with Homecoming, she's got a new movie coming. She's actually, like, rather got a good chance of getting in apparently the mix with Best Actress and whatnot. But like looking at women who have actually found a way to make it work in an industry that very robustly does not want them to is a very potent way of kind of viewing film at these days. And I get the chance to do that on that podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No wonder when I reached out to Michael to be on our next... Oh, actually, I can announce here because we are now past November 1st or November 2nd, so I can announce that Mike and I are going to follow up Charlize Theron with both Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks, and both of you are going to be on different shows there.
Yeah.
But when I reached out to Michael about those podcasts, I was like, look, Meryl is in a movie with Tom Cruise, she's in a movie with Tom Hanks, if you want to be on those. And he said yes, but he's also like, also Julia Roberts, and now I know why, because there is the movie, the newfound obsession there with Julia Roberts, but she is
Larry Crown
America's Sweetheart
is a movie. Exactly. And like just but watching how it was really interesting, and again I know that this is a Fast and Furious podcast, but like if you look at essentially what happened to why there isn't a next Julia Roberts and why there's so much fracturization, that says a lot about the industry. And I think that it's to an actress like Gal Gadot's credit that she is able to again, really sing in this kind of performance and really work her way up to the top in a way that I think, again, so many, like, the reason I love these movies is because the casts are so diverse. It didn't require a lot of thought, and I think that that's to Vin Diesel's credit in a lot of ways, because his experiences as a mixed-race actor have been really important in his life. You can watch some of his early filmography and his, like, personal student films on that kind of stuff, and, like, I think that it's enormously to his credit that he's able to build a cast this terrific that just works this well.
And, you know, speaking of Julia Roberts again for a second, comparing this to the movie that we mentioned a couple times earlier, but like Ocean's 11 is just, aside from really Don Cheadle, it's 11 white dudes, right? Like it's just it's like, what kind of white dude are you? It's sort of like in a way the first Magic Mike, right? Like Joe, we have not gotten there yet for our Channing Tatum podcast, but the first Magic Mike is like, which ripped white dude are you? And in the second movie, I think they made a conscious decision in XXL to like diversify and bring in, like, there's a whole detour to a whole, like, African American, like, there's a whole, like, there's a bunch of things that go on in the second movie that, like, it feels like they were aware, like, we need to diversify. And, like, in Ocean's 11, 12, and 13,
we start very diverse from the jump.
And we're talking about how, like, Brian is really, in a way, the only straight white dude in that first, like, I mean,
Han's character is wonderful because not only is he, again, like, an Asian male in the movie, but the idea is, like, he's a sex, like, he's dating fucking Gal Gadot. Like, I think that he's, like, and that I think is such an important sell of these movies, where, like, again, if you watch the Ocean's 11's movies, there are as many schmucks from Boston between Casey Affleck and Matt Damon, that guy, as there are African Americans between Bernie Mac and again Don Cheadle.
Oh,
on
yeah,
this
Bernie
team.
Mac, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But, like, I think in general, like, the fact that these movies, and again, like, they work on this, and it takes a really dedicated group of individuals making movies to just, like, make this kind of thing happen in the industry as it looks today. And I think that I am enormously in awe of what they pull off on these in particular.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing I do want to point out is that I think a reason I love these movies so much is because there's going to be conflict, but I feel like every movie in a way is like, everything's going to work out for all of our actors. You know what I mean? Like, there's sometimes people die, like Han dies and, you know, Giselle dies and everything, but for the most part, it's like, it feels like everybody, like, it's just going to be sort of like a happy ending. And what I've noticed this time around is that there are several shots in this movie where characters are just hugging each other. Like, it's just like a good time. Like, they're just, I don't know, I feel like the actors probably like each other too, but it feels like the characters genuinely like each other. Like, when they all show up for the heist, or when they find out that Mia's pregnant, there's like 30-second or 45-second shots where it's just like them hugging. And I'm like, I love this.
Like, when they open the safe and the money literally pours out like a liquid and they're all just like ecstatic and celebrating, that is just like, it's incredible. You can't, like,
you might have heard that when you listened to the last lap of this movie, like, I almost cried there because I was just like, I was so happy for them.
Almost. How did you hold it together, buddy? I wept.
I think why I love these movies in a way is because, like, when I saw A Star Is Born, which is half really good and half not my movie, I love the first hour because, like, I love movies where, like, there isn't conflict, which I understand is not really a movie, but, like, I love seeing Lady Gaga's, like, growth from just, like, this bar singer to, like, superstar, and then when conflict comes in, I don't really care, like, it becomes a movie that I don't want to see, but, like, it feels like, in a way, the Fast and Furious movies are all, like, the first hour of A Star Is Born. Like, it's
us
just,
against the world.
This is where I want to live. This is my wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's a group of friends, just them against the world, and there's no pettiness and none of that stuff, and I always admire that. I did come up with a problem in the course of this rewatching this movie, and then after this we can move on. But my only problem with the movie is that, okay, so you are, again, Dom, You have fled the country after exploding a bus owned by the feds that had 27 other people on it at minimum.
Yeah.
You have managed to abscond to Brazil, a fact which you then remind the feds that you were in Brazil by carrying out a convoluted car heist, the likes of which only you can do.
Yes.
What do you drive around Brazil in? An amazing car. That's what he decides to do. If I was on the... And that's how they get found, because literally it's at traffic lights. They find kick-ass cars, they look at the people behind the camera, and they're able to positively identify Brian and Dom.
Although, no, hold on. Wait, I think I can explain this away.
Really?
Because in this movie, they rob Reyes so that he gets all of his money together.
Yes.
And I think, if I heard it right, they intentionally get caught. They intentionally get seen so that Tej can plant the tracker under Hobbs' car. Like, I think it is intentional that they are out just, like, getting caught because they want to lure him to Race Wars, or whatever the Brazilian Race Wars is, so that they can have Tej under there and plant the tracker. Then, then eventually Hobbs finds it, flips the switch, finds them, but I think it's intentional. Like, I don't think they're just, like, fucking around, like, just, like, flaunting their wealth. I think it's intentional.
I would agree with you if after that they had done my plan, which is switch into an 86 Gremlin and a Nissan Stanza, and then blend in with the crowd. But after that, they don't. They keep on driving the really nice cars, where they're the only known international. They steal additional cars. I don't know, but that's my only gripe. But that's a good counterpoint. That they were trying to bait him out, and that's a lot of what's fun about this movie is that they manipulate the greed, and they're able to goad people into doing what they want them to do, and that I think is like so interesting when it comes to like how smart they are with when it comes to how to run these heists.
I think it's just smart delivery to the audience too, that like you have to piece together the movie. Joey's like, oh yeah, well maybe like they were doing like they had to put that tracker on them, and you're like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. That they're not spoon feeding you the whole story of the action anymore.
Because I feel like a lot of these movies are like just somebody saying, I got an idea, and then there's an action scene, and it's like, well, okay, but like, what's the idea? I do think, and this is also coming from someone who just unabashedly loves these movies. I know that we all do, but it feels like to me like I can explain most of what happens in these movies to an extent.
Yes.
But I'm also giving it the benefit of the doubt because I love it. So I understand that it might be a little confirmation bias on my end.
I agree.
One of y'all pointed out similarities that it has to An Italian Job, which one of y'all described as a movie that you hate.
Yes, but you know that this was originally the Brazilian Job, right? The Italian Job Part 2?
Yeah, and like one thing that I love about the Italian Job and Ocean's 11, to go back to those, is that both of those are based on previous movies. And I went back and watched those for, again, as yet undisclosed project. What happened and how it worked was that when they remade the movies, they made Ocean's 11 more like the Italian Job, and they made the Italian Job more like the original Ocean's 11.
Oh.
Because the plot of the original Ocean's 11, I don't know if you've ever seen the Sinatra movie, is Frank Sinatra gets several war buddies, they carry out a brief terrorist attack, they punch every cashier in Vegas while the city's lost power, and then they rob Vegas. That's the extent of the plan. And then in the original Italian Job, it's like a sophisticated Swiss watch car movie style abscond, like take the gold away. And so like they really inverted in the case that Italian Job got way more smash and grab, Ocean's 11 got way more how do we pull this one off, fellas? Looking at owing to their like shared history, this being the Brazilian Job, you can see a lot of DNA with maybe the original Italian Job movie in a lot of ways.
Yes, I would say so. I definitely
the Michael Caine one, yeah.
Because like it feels like in Ocean's 11, where Danny is literally not in prison, but he's like in that private room for the heist, and like part of the plan is for him to basically be not part of the plan. Like it's like that doesn't feel in a way, I don't think, like this. Like it's not like Vin would ever be like, or Dom would be like, yeah, part of this plan is to me not to be involved. Like I feel like he's at the core of everything. But yeah, no, I think that's a really good point.
Again, watch the original Italian. It's Michael Caine. It's got the line like, you were only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Like, it's very, like, it's funny as hell. And I think that it shares a lot of DNA with this movie. Much more so than the Wahlberg Italian Jobs.
Joe, we talked about, because at some point, Walt, I know that we're going to, on some extent, on some level, tire of these movies.
What?
No pun intended for tire.
Impossible. That's incorrect.
But what we're going to do is we're going to stagger them, or if we go weekly, we'll stagger them, or whatever. But we're going to stagger them with what we call pit stops. They're going to be like themed laps. So a lap is going to be the 8 or 9 movies. So we talked about doing car movies, because there's so many of those. But also I think another one that sort of pairs with that is heist movies.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. I think in between this one and the next one, maybe we do like Italian Job, Ocean's 11 type movies. Yeah, I agree.
The originals. Like I think like ones that we haven't seen. You know what I mean? Like,
agreed. Yeah.
Honestly, do the Italians' job. I'm pluralizing it like attorneys general, but like do the Italians' job. Figure out, because again, if this was going to be the Brazilian Job, then it's almost like it's a shout back towards what the Michael Caine movie was. I think in a lot of ways, rather than what the Wahlberg movie was.
I'm down to watch it.
And speaking of attorneys general, that is my favorite pluralization. I saw in one of my favorite film writers, this woman Alison Wilmore for BuzzFeed, pluralize Coles de Sac, and I was like, oh, that is incredible.
All right,
Walt, we are ready now. Do you have anything else to say, or do you want to move on to the game?
I'm good. Let's go.
All right, we're going to find out which Fast and Furious character you are. Are you ready?
This was a quiz that I found that's pretty much like a J13 style quiz.
Sure.
That you just answer the questions. Sometimes there's 2 answers, sometimes there's 8. Just pick whatever one you like best or best describes you.
Yeah,
and
totally.
We'll see where you land.
Yeah.
Question number 1. First things first. How fast do you like to go? Also, here's a side note. We don't know what these questions mean sometimes. Like, we don't know how they impact the selection. So you might have questions. You can ask them. We don't know the answers.
We'll be unable to. Got it.
We're all in here blind. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, and for the record also, I am Brian, Joe is Mia. So we have that as a baseline here. Okay.
Roger that.
First things first, how fast do you like to go? NASCAR, roller coaster, Vespa.
Let's go roller coaster.
Cool.
Good choice, yeah.
Second thing second, how furious are you? Hulk, Sam Kinison, or Furious Styles from Boys in the Hood?
I'm gonna go Hulk. Yeah.
Ooh.
But, yeah. It's been a rough couple of years, buddies.
It's not been great. Who would you risk your life for? Family, friends, anyone, no one?
I'm gonna go anyone. Yeah.
All right. Oh, here's one that I noticed that there's a line from this movie. Choose a one-liner. Why don't you just pack it up before I leave tread marks on your face? I'm a boy who appreciates a good body regardless of the make. The line that I heard in this movie, when are you going to give Martin Luther King his car back? To which he responds, as soon as you give Rick James his jacket back. That's not one of the lines.
Oh.
He's like gravity. Everything just gets pulled to him. There's never nothing. There's always something. Ride or die.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the gravity one. That sounds pretty neat.
Cool. I don't think
you're picking answers that we haven't picked yet, so this could be interesting. Okay.
All right.
Someone you have a crush on is standing over there. What will you do? Nothing. Let them come to me. I'm going over there. Stand here and stare at them. I'm out of here.
I'm gonna go over there. Go over to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very forward.
Yeah.
Okay. This one has a visual element. So let me take a picture and put it in the chat for us. Choose your ride. 2010 Alfa Romeo Giulietta, 2009
Buddy.
Dodge Challenger
I'm
SRT8.
going with the Dodge Challenger.
Oh yeah, of course.
Picking
We
it
were
up
talking
from
about
earlier.
that.
Yeah.
Sure. Which of these opposites do you tend toward? Positive or negative?
That's my favorite question on the whole quiz.
What?
Like they're like so deep and intricate, and then you just get there. You're like, are you positive or negative? And that's just it.
Let's go negative.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about lying?
Wait, am I gonna be a bad guy now?
We don't know. I don't think anybody got a bad guy.
I don't think there are. So here's another thing. We've only gotten 4. Like we've done this 6 times. I think we've gotten 4 characters.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a 5th one.
Yeah.
Nobody's gotten Letty. Like we don't know that Letty's in here. I don't know. Like we don't know who the answers are, but we'll find out.
So we're not talking Myers-Briggs here.
No, I think there's maybe if we're lucky 8. I think there's probably closer to 6. I don't know. How do you feel about lying? I'm a big liar. I lie sometimes, no big deal. If I do lie, I feel bad about it forever. Call me Honest Abe.
I'm probably the second one.
I lie sometimes, no big deal. Okay.
It's little small ones.
How do you say goodbye to someone you love? Remember them every day? Turn your back and walk away? Pour your 40 out? You don't.
How do you know I have a 40? Yeah, that. I'll do the pour the 40 out.
Pour the 40 out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another visual component. One of these, at least one of these doesn't line up with the picture, so good luck here. But it is choose an action hero. John Kimball from Kindergarten Cop, not Terminator, as it looks there. John Matrix from Commando. James Carter from Rush Hour. Nikita from La Femme Nikita. John Rambo, or The Rock in Hercules.
He's really good in Hercules. I'm going to do The Rock in Hercules.
Cool.
Okay.
What's your favorite article of clothing? My dark jeans, my favorite wife beater, my too tight t-shirt, my old sneakers, my leather jacket.
It is my too tight t-shirt.
It's our anniversary. What are we doing? Candlelit dinner for 2 somewhere dark, Let's just go somewhere dark. Let's drive.
We're gonna do candlelight dinner for 2.
And then the last question, one more visual component. If you were to have your photo taken, what would the background be? Desert, blue sky, garage, city lights, an explosion.
So realistically, it'd probably be city lights, but an explosion looks good. I'm gonna go
All right,
with
you
an
want to do
explosion.
explosion?
Yeah, you know what? Fortune favors the brave.
Joe, do you have any guesses on who Walt is?
I'm gonna guess Dom.
He is, we finally got it, Luke Hobbs.
Oh shit, we got a Hobbs?
I do wonder if
it's purely the Hercules choice.
If it's like you pick Hercules, you are just Hobbs.
Really?
Because I tried to get Hobbs and I got him because I picked all of his things. But here's the description for you, Walt.
I'm so good with this.
With reckless abandon, you fight for what you believe in, and you don't judge people. You have a strong moral code, but you remain open-minded. Your work is your obsession, and you don't take breaks until the job is done. Joe, we get it again, and you drive like the wind blows.
So we've been trying to figure out if all of them end with you drive by like the wind blows, and apparently they all do.
Because Mia drives like the wind blows, Roman does, and now Hobbs does too, so...
I mean, this fits. It is the only canonically gay Fast and Furious character, so I'm pretty good with this. Like, this
there
is
we go.
What I really want. I mean, we agreed earlier.
We did.
It's fact, it's canon, yes, exactly. Cool, so now we have a Hobbs to join our crew,
Hell
so
yeah.
I love that, that is...
We're rounding out the family.
Perfect.
We are.
Exactly.
Slowly but surely.
We have one other game here on the show.
Oh my God,
There
this
is
is my
a
favorite.
scoring component to this one.
Sure.
It's called This Ain't No 10-Second Race, a.k.a. Boy, Do We Have a Podcast for You. So the rules of this game, go on Twitter, find any tweet you want.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be anything. I mean, ideally something Fast and Furious related, but doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be.
We will then, from the Cage Club Twitter, at Cage Club Pod, tweet at this tweet, say, boy, do we have a podcast for you, link to our show page, hashtag 2Fast2Forever, hashtag 2F2F, hashtag Fast and Furious. While you look for a tweet for this time around, I'm going to review. This has only been 2 days, but I also feel like, Joe, if there's going to be interaction, it's probably going to be...
Pretty immediately.
So I don't think this is a bad thing. So, okay, to review the one last time, Joe, you found Vin Diesel 167-02847, at Vin Diesel, Dom and Letty, all love. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. No likes. Nothing, unfortunately.
Damn. Okay.
I then found this ludicrous in Fast and Furious 7, quote tweeting a picture of a GTA San Andreas. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. No interactions. Also, Walt, this is a very difficult game. It's hard to get points. The scoring, just so you know, a like is worth 1, a retweet 2, a reply 5, and if they email us, 10 points.
Can I tell you the proudest thing that ever happened to me?
Sure.
What?
You guys are aware, I presume, of the actor Vin Diesel, right?
Yes.
I think I've heard of him.
Very popular fella. So, fun fact, Vin Diesel is on Twitter. He's a verified person on Twitter. He is at Vin Diesel. He has 227,000 followers, but I wouldn't say that he's an active user of Twitter.
I can't imagine that he would be.
Well, he has 21 tweets and 7 likes, which is not a lot of tweets or likes, right? One of the tweets is tweeting out my 538 article about Vin Diesel.
Oh!
Uh-oh.
So I'm gonna throw it down, and I'm gonna give you that tweet, and I'm gonna do a power move here of the time that Vin Diesel tweeted my story.
Okay, that's very cool. Oh, man, if he... Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a side game, Joe, where we only tweet at Vin Diesel every time.
So he, again, 21 tweets. Most recent tweet, 12 May 2017. It's about Hannibal, and I want nothing more than that Hannibal movie to come out.
So what you're saying is Vin Diesel knows who you are, or at least knows you exist.
I believe that Vin Diesel has read my work about Vin Diesel.
Which
is incredible.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Oh god, I'm very jealous. We have 2 ultimate goals. We've said these recently, but I don't think those episodes have even come out yet. My one ultimate goal is I want to go to a Fast and Furious release.
Sure.
So they have us there to do the Too Fast, Too Forever release of a Fast and Furious movie.
The red carpet.
I want to be like at the red carpet. Like I don't need to be like, like nobody's gonna know who I am.
Yeah.
That's fine. But like it's just gonna be there. We do free promo for them. Second thing I want that's gonna be a little bit more difficult.
This one is crazy.
Is that in one of the movies I want one of the characters to be listening to Too Fast, Too Forever and pause it. Like, so they'll be, like, listening to it, and it'll get, like, super meta, right? Like, it'll be, like, Tej will be, like, listening to it, and Roman will be like, what are you doing? And he's like, nothing, and pauses his phone, and you just see that he was listening to Too Fast, Too Forever for a second. But that one will never happen.
Which, I mean, I'm sure you gather, Walt, but that means that in this universe, these movies are movies. That we are commenting on while they go on these adventures, so...
Would you like a tip? Netflix is losing a lot of money, and they would love to do some in-person product placement. So if you take out a small home equity loan, I'm sure that you could send a check to Netflix and make it happen.
I also feel like I've read a thing or two in your newsletter about MoviePass not doing too well, so maybe MoviePass would take some money from us.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like, if you offered MoviePass money, they might just ask how much, and you might be able to say something, and then, we'll see.
You just own MoviePass at that point.
Honestly, at a certain point,
it.
Do you know how easy it is to own MoviePass at this point? Their stock is less than 2 cents.
Yeah,
I know.
So
one of my favorite podcasts, Never Not Funny, they were obsessed with MoviePass. Like I was subscribing to MoviePass for 3 years before they dropped the price. Like I was paying $35 a month and $45 a month, and it was still like a bargain for me.
Yeah.
Because I would save $60 or $70 a month, and then they dropped it to $10, and then everybody in the known world became obsessed with MoviePass, and Never Not Funny talked about it a lot. You know, they were sort of making side bets in a way of like when it was going to die.
Yeah.
It's still around, but I canceled because it's terrible.
Coward. Are you seriously? I'm riding this thing out. I'm seeing where it goes.
I got burnt. Like I went to a theater 3 times in a week, and between the time I left my house and got to the theater, my showtime wasn't available, and I was like, this has been too much. Like it's not like I live in New York where I could walk to a theater, or like if I go to the theater and it's not there, I go do something else. Like I have to physically drive 10 or 15 minutes. I was like, I've been burned too many times by MoviePass. Anyway, Jimmy Pardo, the host of that podcast, bought MoviePass stock when it was 20 cents. He's like, it's got to go up. And then since then it's gone down to, 2 cents. I don't know how much he spent on it, but any amount of money was too much money because what a disaster. But so my 2 favorite things about Walt's newsletter on an ongoing, like the sort of the through lines, I'm sure there's a bunch of them, but MoviePass is number 1, and number 2, raccoons. There's a raccoon through line in your newsletter, especially Canadian raccoons.
Canadian raccoons.
Fascinating.
Well, because Canada, here's what I've learned, is obsessed with raccoons. Like every time I've talked to, like I put them in because
do they not have any?
No, they have way too goddamn many, and they're doing everything that they can to subvert them. Because like every time I put it in the newsletter, like if something shows up again, it's because I got emails from people saying, "Thank God somebody's covering it."
Well, like, Joe, I talked about on this podcast that when I went to Toronto, I was walking around and I saw a picture of a garbage can. Like, there was this thing, as the thing that Walt shared, that the city of Toronto spent like millions of dollars trying to create these like raccoon-proof garbage cans, which, spoiler alert, didn't work. The raccoons outsmarted them. But I saw these like gargantuan hulking structures. I was like, oh shit. So I took a picture and I tweeted it to Walt, and I was just like, I can't not think of you when I think of Canadian raccoons now. So there's that. So, Okay, so just to finish up the recap from last time, Liam and Ellie both also tweeted at, about learning about sex by watching porn is like learning how to drive by watching Fast and Furious. No interactions. And then Jason Derulo, I just got my duck back. I named that sexy bit Iguana. Team Unique did a great job. No interactions there, unfortunately. So
we're all pretty bad at this.
We're all really bad at this. Oh, also, Walt, for the record, we say this every episode, so I feel like our listeners are tired of us saying this maybe, but Joe has a history of tweeting at people who get their account suspended. Like, it's happened multiple times. That in the month it took between the time we tweeted and the time we recorded again, the person got suspended. So that's not out of the realm of possibility here.
Yeah.
But, okay.
It happens, hey.
So we have your tweet from Vin Diesel.
God, I'm so jealous of
no
that.
commentary. Just tweeted like this is a thing that I'm
straight up just tweeted one link. It's amazing, and it's literally like
not even like
of his tweet. Yeah, no,
like
not even. This is a correct take. It's just bloom.
Boy, do we have a podcast for you,
Vin Diesel.
really about you, really, Vin.
Yeah.
Boy, do we have a podcast about you. But okay, cool. That was one. Joe, do you have a tweet that you found for?
Yes. Fast and Furious 1 through 5 are on Netflix. OMG from @officialHugh.
Sure.
HUE, which is appropriate for today, considering Hugh Jackson got fired. Maybe it's his account. He's watching Netflix.
Boy, do we have a podcast for you, Official Hugh.
I would like to imagine that there's a world where Hugh Jackson was like, damn, now I can catch up on Too Fast, Too Forever, and just like walked out of the building.
That hour 40 every month, I just didn't have it. Now I finally got the time.
That's also that's news. Oh my god, I rented 5.
We don't know if they're in the UK or something, so this could be like a different Netflix. We don't know.
Hashtag moist daddies
is
in his bio. I don't know what it is, but hashtag moist daddies. Shout out Official Hugh. Okay, I'm going to search for... What do I want to search
We're eventually going to
for?
hit somebody else that's also pissed off that we've been talking about them.
I would... I mean, again, like, it's the same thing, like, people asking, like, are we allowed to use music? I'm like, I would love to be big enough to bother someone enough that they want to send us a cease and desist. Like, that is the goal. You know what I mean? Okay, I found... Oh, I don't know which one to do. There's 2 here. Okay.
You just get one. Make a good
I'm just going to
choice.
do this one, I think.
Okay.
Here we go. I'm going to put it in here. It's a quote tweet, so it's one or the other. So this one is from Patrick H. Wilhelm Screen.
A correct man. That's who he is.
So he quote tweets a tweet from Angie J. Hahn. It's a gif of Han and Giselle from 6 saying, I'm still not over this and I will never be. And then Patrick says... I will kill for a Han Giselle spin-off trilogy set between Fast 5 and 6.
I agree.
This is from 2 months ago, but boy, do we have a podcast for you. I just searched, all I searched was Han Giselle on Twitter, because, like, nobody's tweeting about the words Han and Giselle if it's not about this franchise. So that might be, like, if this works, that might be my in from here on out. But I think that was pretty, I hope that was pretty successful. Those felt good. Those felt like good tweets.
Yeah.
We'll see if we get no points like usual.
In 2 weeks, because now we're on a bi-weekly schedule, but here we are trying to find out how to score points in this goddamn game. Okay. I think we're done. So thank you, Walt. Anything else that you want to say before we close up shop here on this episode? Anything else you want to say about this movie, about the franchise? Again, we would love to have you on any movie that you want to talk about, if there's another one.
I will be coming on for a few in the Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks shows, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Very much so.
Thanks so much for thinking of me. Before we get smash cut to Donza Kuduro, I guess. The newsletter that we've been talking about is Numlock News. You can find it at, just if you go to the URL, numlock.news. Numlock, like the old key that used to be on keyboards. I've been doing that all summer. It's been a lot of fun. You'll soon be able to find my work at Insider, and that'll be a ton of fun. I'm on Twitter at Walt Hickey. And, if you want to check out that podcast about, actresses and people who have made a really, like Julia Roberts and Meryl Streep, and I believe he's almost decided on what to do next, but that is Not Her Again, so that is in the iTunes store, Not Her Again. But yeah, thanks again, guys. This has been so much fun.
Of course.
Dude, I'm so glad you came on. I had a good time. That was awesome.
Cool. And Not Her Again is sort of a spiritual sister podcast in a way to a lot of the things that we do over here. So in full disclosure, I have not listened yet, but now that I know that there is it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I love the idea, but I want to see where they go next. Now that I know that you're doing Julia Roberts next, I'm like, now I know there's like an arc to it. So I'm gonna go check that out now.
Yep.
Who doesn't love them? I was also thinking, oh, maybe he'll want to talk to us about 8, but then it was Helen Mirren. Helen Mirren's sort of in that kind of world too, you know what I mean? So maybe
I don't know. He's not the biggest fan of the Fast and Furious franchise movies because he hasn't watched many of them. But I feel like
you can fix that. Boy, do we have a podcast for him.
Can I? Yeah, boy. Yeah, sweet at Kate Blanchett with 2 T's.
Yes.
It's a great franchise. I'm a big fan of this. I think that it's a great way of storytelling. I think that Vin Diesel never gets enough credit for making it happen. Just the cast alone is it's amazing that they get the chance to work together, and I am just really enamored with the storytelling style because it's very fresh compared to a lot of how other people treat franchises. So I really enjoy it, and thank you so much for having me on. This has been a real pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. And so for all things Cage Club Podcast Network and Too Fast Too Forever, including our episode of, what was it? It was 211, I think you were on, which was still the worst Nicolas Cage movie of all time.
Yeah,
you can go to cageclub.me or facebook.com/cageclub or at cageclubpod on Twitter and Instagram. We have an email address here on the show, email family@cageclub.me.
Yeah.
We're now releasing podcasts every other Tuesday, so come back in 2 weeks for Fast and Furious 6 with Joe. What's it got?
The world's longest runway.
You know it. Fast and Furious 6 here in 2 weeks with Jordan Pullen Clark of the Wistful Thinking podcast. And just, go to cageclub.me, email family@cageclub.me. Just say hi. We'll read whatever you send on air. Also, go check out Numlock News and Not Her Again, and, support the things that Walt does. So,
thank you.
I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too.
And that was Walt Hickey, and we'll see you next time in 2 weeks, right here on Too Fast, Too Forever.
Y'all know what we do, y'all know exactly how we rollin', and we huggin' every block, no matter